Well, good morning, everyone. Thomas Montgomery here. It's a beautiful Thursday morning, March 24th, 2022. We get together with our distribution partners most weekday mornings at this time to talk about strategies, tips, techniques, success stories, but mainly we're here to support you. Today, we're going to go back and take another deep dive into the Collateral Support Program, because while we see that there's tremendous interest, I think there's still some superficial knowledge that some of our referral partners have, and we want to be more transparent and dig deeper. So I'm a school teacher by trade. I used to be a high school teacher. So my philosophy then was always to start with the why, because if the student knew why we're talking about it or why it's relevant, then the what becomes much more of interest. So let's step back and talk about the why of the Collateral Support Program. And the truth is, there's a couple different whys, but the primary one is, you and I are technical advisors, right? We're working with small businesses. We're helping them build their financial literacy. We're helping them build their loan packages, and we're helping them get credible enough on paper to qualify for funding, to start a grow business, right? That's what we do. You and I are victims of circumstance, right? We understand that if you want to borrow money, we have to be cognizant of the 3 C's, because we have to have at least one of the 3 C's: credit, cash flow, which is technically called capacity, and collateral. You're not meaning you, but one cannot borrow money or get an extension of credit, typically, if you don't meet at least one of the 3 C's. And the more of the 3 C's that we meet that we're credible on, the better. All right, so one of those 3 C's is, again, collateral. Well, why would collateral matter, right? Isn't this just a distraction? Why do we even worry about collateral? Well, if you were the lender, you would care a whole lot about the collateral, because the collateral is what's pledged by the borrower to the lender or the extender of credit, that if the borrower did not pay back as agreed, there's some risk mitigation that the lender has. So for instance, if you wanted to go get a mortgage on a house, the house is the collateral for the mortgage, for the loan. And if you choose, or circumstances warrant where you don't pay your mortgage payments after a certain amount of time, they will foreclose on the home, and then they will put it up for auction and resell it. And that's why mortgages are pretty easy to get, because they're collateralized. Well, it's obviously also easier to get business funding if we have collateral to pledge, because it reduces the risk of the lender. Makes sense, right? Okay. So let's then decide, well, what can we do to help clients? Because you and I are technical advisors, right? We build financial literacy, we build loan packages, we help them become credible enough to get funding. So what are some creative ideas that we could come up with of how a client could add collateral to their balance sheet? It's like, whoa, where'd this balance sheet come in? Well, even if it's a brand new business, what you and I do, and we cover it in module 3 of the 4-week curriculum, of course, which is an award-winning curriculum developed by the FDIC, promoted by the SBA. But in module 3, we talk about collateral, we talk about balance sheets and income statements. You and I know it's only someone that's financially illiterate that would say, oh, I don't have a balance sheet because I'm a new start business. Well, once the business has been formed and the bank account's been opened, it's time to be able to produce a balance sheet. It's ignorance to think otherwise, but that's okay. That's what you and I do. We build financial literacy. So if the balance sheet is light, we need to have some way to add collateral. The Collateral Support Program is just one option. So this isn't some bait and switch where every client we work with needs the Collateral Support Program. That's not true at all. But what we do know is that this is a very convenient and lucrative way to add collateral. So what are some other ways that they could add? Well, if they have other assets themselves, or other businesses that they own, or business partners have assets that can be transferred legally and truly into the business and then reflected on the balance sheet, great. So they could kind of reposition their assets to reflect on the balance sheet. But what you and I know is a lot of times the clients we work with, they don't have enough assets to reposition to build a strong enough balance sheet to show the lender that they have collateral that matches the amount of loan that they want. Thus, we come back to the Collateral Support Program. The Collateral Support Program, and this is the two-page flyer, and I'll send this out again with the recording. I think most of you have seen it. It's kind of a one-page synopsis. We can read a bit of it, but the Collateral Support Program was designed by former SBA, SBDC advisors and SCORE mentors to enable financing for small businesses that might otherwise be unavailable due to a collateral shortfall. That's the technical term, collateral shortfall. The program supplies a portfolio of potentially revenue-producing accounts receivables to the balance sheet of participants while concurrently improving borrowing capacity with a stronger income statement. So you and I know that in Module 3, we teach them about balance sheets and income statements. Balance sheets reflects the assets and liabilities of the business. Yes, even if the business was formed yesterday, we should still have a balance sheet. And then income statement, which shows over a defined period of time, revenue and expenses. I understand if the business just formed, there may not be any revenue, there may not even be any expenses on it, but we still need to be able to produce the reports because the lender doesn't want to guess. The lender wants a loan package, one of the three things that we do, and the balance sheet and income statement should be included. So by not including a balance sheet income statement, does that make a stronger loan package? No. It makes it pretty much an automatic denial. What if we have a thin balance sheet and income statement? There's not much there, not much going on yet. Well, that's where you and I bring in the Collateral Support Program as one option. So let's talk now, digging back the layers. So when a client enrolls in the Collateral Support Program, they're going to receive a portfolio of $100,000 of assets. So it's pause. This is not pretend, this is not makeup, this is not fuzzy, this is not gray, this is not questionable. I've shared with you all, we've sold portfolios, multi-million-dollar portfolios to law firms. So this is real. So we have to dismiss any scrutiny over that. Technically, this is the industry of debt buying and debt selling. Some of you are familiar with this, some of you aren't. Historically, debt buying revolved around three different types of instruments: defaulted mortgages, defaulted car loans, and defaulted credit cards. Big industry, big players, very lucrative. We'll talk more about that in a second. What you and I are bringing is this type of approach that's credible, it's legitimate, it's validated to our clients to fix the problem that they have. Again, the why is that they have not enough collateral on their balance sheet. Now, let's take the law firm out of Austin, Texas that we sold over $3 million, a large portfolio. Normally we put portfolios in $100,000 increments. Why did that law firm buy over $3 million of debt instruments from us? Was it because they like us? No, they could give a shit about us. Is it because they just wanted to spend a bunch of money? No, of course not. It's because they're of value. These are receivables that the law firm has sought to collect upon. So to convert from a receivable to cash. So we need to make sure that we understand that when we're helping clients set up the Collateral Support Program, it's not just adding assets to the balance sheet to look stronger and have collateral. That's probably the primary or the first goal, but understand that these should be profitable to the client. Why? Because in one portfolio, the client is now owed $100,000. So we sell it to you if you're wanting to be a debt buyer, and there's no cost to be a debt buyer, but we'll sell a portfolio to you for 10 cents on the dollar. You can sell it to your clients or to others, mark it up, typically marking it to 15 to 20 cents on the dollar. So let's say that the client pays 20 cents on the dollar. Now they've got $100,000 of collateral on their balance sheet. But also, this is a growing asset. Well, how is it growing? Well, each of these debt instruments that are composed within the portfolio have contractual daily late fees. So each day, the amount owed to the debt buyer, in this example, the client, they're owed $500 more today than they were owed yesterday. 10 accounts, $50 a day late fee. Tomorrow, they're owed another $500. So the value of their receivables goes up $500 a day, assuming that there's 30 days in a month. Now they've gone up $15,000. Think about that. You can't, in my opinion, you can't go to the crypto market or the real estate market. Everyone clamors about real estate. Oh, get rich in real estate, buying residential properties or commercial properties. That is a piss poor alternative to buying and selling debt. I just showed you in 30 days how we can increase by 15%. Now, of course, you have to liquidate that. So an asset, AR is an asset, but cash is an even better asset. So part of what I needed you to understand through today's discussion is that once a client buys the debt portfolio, we have a dedicated team that works with them. I'm not a member of that team, but we have a team that works with them to help them begin liquidating that debt, because cash is better than accounts receivable. I don't know that you could find anyone that would argue that point. So they start with $100,000 accounts receivable. It increases by $500 a day, by $15,000 a month on their books. But again, we want actually cash, and so they can liquidate that. There are three primary ways that a debt buyer can liquidate the accounts receivables. Number one, collect. Number two, litigate. Number three, resell. So let's go through each of those. Collect. Well, just like if you and I owned a lawn service, right? And if we just signed a lawn contract with our neighbor to mow their grass, it would be really nice if they paid us. And so we would probably invoice them, right? So we move from receivable to cash by sending an invoice to the person that owes us money. That's not too revolutionary, is it? Same here. So the portfolio goes to the debt buyer. One of the first things that first thing we want the client to do, the debt buyer to do, is to post that assets on their balance sheet so we can move forward with funding. But secondly, and more relevant to this point, send an invoice, because the debtor, these are real people that owe money. And so we provide the spreadsheet, we have the media. So the debt buyer knows that it's, we'll just pick on, who will we pick on here? We'll pick on Joseph, my friend Joseph. So let's say that Joseph Odema is a white label partner and he defaulted. So he owes $10,000 for his deposit. And we sold his account as part of a portfolio to Mr. Ryan's. So Mr. Ryan's bought a portfolio and Joseph's information's on there. Joseph's name, his social security, his date of birth, usually get his driver's license information, how much he owes, why he owes it, and all that. So it would be really smart for Charles to send an email and maybe even a letter, but to get an invoice over to Joseph to say, hey, by the way, I acquired your debt and you owe me $10,000. And per the contract, it's going to go up $50 a day. Give me a call and let's resolve this. And so certainly the debt buyer could do that. Now, you and I know that a lot of clients don't want to play debt collector, right? So the invoice still should go out, but instead of an in-house collection effort, there are firms called collection agencies. Collection agencies will collect this debt for the debt buyer and not charge the debt buyer. So the collection agency, we place lots of deals with collection agencies ourselves. So they get the file, they send out letters, they start reporting negative on the credit bureaus, and some people pay. I'm not saying all the people pay, but some people pay. Well, guess what? So if the debt buyer is using a collection agency, the collection agency is collecting the money, the collection agency fees are on top of, typically on top of the debt, so it's not reducing the amount owed. Now all of a sudden there's a liquidation that's occurring. The debt buyer is seeing money come in from the work of the collection agency, and so they would expect to collect over $100,000 over time, which they only paid 10 or 20 cents on the dollar. That's really good, right? Where else can you go double, triple, quintuple, or 10 times your money back? Not too many places. So the first way to liquidate would be collect, whether it be in-house or external collections. The second way that debt buyers can liquidate the debt that they're owed is to litigate. And so that means to sue. And so there are law firms that will take on cases on a contingency only fee. And because these are real debts, remember, this is not pretend, this is not made up, these are real debts. So now in a different scenario, so let's say that Mr. Ryans doesn't want to send Joseph to a debt collector, or he sent Joseph to a debt collector and it didn't work. So now Mr. Ryans could in fact use an attorney to sue Joseph for the money that is owed, the $10,000 for this defaulted white label partner agreement. And so does Joseph really owe it? Absolutely. Is there a sound, secure, enforceable contract that Charles owns that Joseph agreed to? Absolutely. Will Joseph end up paying it? Yeah, voluntarily or involuntarily. So that's a second way that the debt buyer can liquidate the accounts receivable. The third scenario is it can just simply be resold. So what's the point? What's the rant all about? The Collateral Support Program, I think, is more valuable than maybe what some of you are first understanding. Is it a true exchange of assets that's properly documented that transfers ownership from the seller to the buyer so it can be properly reflected on their balance sheet? Absolutely. Absolutely. Above and beyond that, is it an expense or is it an investment? It's clearly an investment. I think some of you that I've talked to somehow think, oh, it's an expense. Man, I'm taking on this cost. How am I going to afford it? It's like, it's the opposite of that. This is an asset that we need to work on liquidating, either through collections, litigation, or reselling it. And then that allows you to monetize it. And obviously the goal is to bring in more money off that portfolio than what was spent to purchase it. If you think about this, this is no different than Walmart. Here's a crazy analogy, right? Walmart has a store with a bunch of products that they bought from other companies. They put on the shelves, and then people buy it and they sell it at a markup and they make a profit. Well, you could make that analogy here. Debt buyers buy the asset, and they could certainly turn around and collect money from that by people buying it, or through the litigation, or through the collection efforts. So this is a really strong arrow that each of us have in our quivers as technical advisors. How do you monetize it? There's really two ways. There's the organic way, and I guess the not organic way. So the organic way is to bring on clients, and then we take clients through the curriculum, the award-winning curriculum developed by the FDIC, promoted by the SBA. And so as we go through those 4 modules, we get to, module 1 is building the business plan, module 2 is building business credit, module 3 is building the financial statements, balance sheet, income statement, module 4, we pull it all together. So when we get to module 4, we're pulling it all together. And so now we look down at our desk and see, well, the client's asking for X dollars, but they don't have X in collateral. We consult with them about how do we close that gap. We need to do one of two things: either bring more collateral to the table or reduce the amount of ask, the requested loan amount, down to what they do have collateral for. It makes a lot more sense in most cases to add collateral to have more borrowing capacity, especially in light of all the other benefits. So the organic way is just bring clients into the system, and it'll become just apparent that there's a need for more collateral. And I think you'll find that there's a very warm response to the Collateral Support Program when it's described accurately and transparently as on this sheet, as I've described with you. Alternatively, it can just be sold out to the marketplace. In other words, to people that are not in the capital raise process. And so that is an option too. All right, so who has questions, comments, concerns on the collateral support program? Winston asked, should an escrow account be used for the transaction? Well, that's a great point. So there's two scenarios that we're seeing. We have some of you that are just referring clients to us and we're doing the direct transaction. So in other words, we're selling the debt portfolio directly to the client, and that's an option. Others of you are wanting to get into the revenue stream, and what that means is that we sell the portfolio to you, Winston, and then you sell it to the client. We'll support you and train you and all that on it, and then you mark it up. So for us, I don't see the relevance of an escrow account because it's a purchase. And so if someone is buying a portfolio from us, we will finance it all except for 1 point. They just pay 1 point down, $1,000 down. And that's an incredible deal, right? So they're getting 100,000 of real receivables, real assets that we're transferring the ownership of. It's not pretend, it's real. And they only pay 1,000 down. A 1 point down will finance the other 9% because we sell at 10%. We call that wholesale. If you as a debt buyer want to buy it and mark it up, then of course you can set whatever price that you want. But with all that being said, Winston's question is about using an escrow account, and I don't see the need for that. Escrow accounts are typically used by law firms and title companies and others where they're holding someone else's money and they don't have unrestricted right or use to it. So it's some sort of protection. Well, here, Winston, if you buy a portfolio and you go sell it to Veronica, Veronica pays you, and I don't see where an escrow account comes in, but it's quite possible you know something that I don't, Winston. And I don't mean that sarcastically, but I don't see any need for an escrow account. I'm telling you, we have sold, the largest we sold so far is a little bit over 3 million. We have an institutional debt buyer we talked to 2 days ago. The amount has fluctuated from 5 mil to over 15 million. Right now, we're looking at a $12 million transaction. Not done yet. We'll see if it happens. Who knows? I mean, they're interested and they have the funds. There's people out there that buy and sell debt, but the bottom line is there won't be an escrow account. It's a purchase, just like if you sold your couch, right? You don't have to go put the money in escrow. They get the couch, you get the 150 bucks. Okay, but any questions? A good question. So Collateral Support Program, huge resource for clients to help them become more credible on paper, which is one of the 3 things we do. Huge revenue stream for you if you wish to get involved in the exchange. And some of you aren't. Some of you just say, no, you'll just leave it to us to sell to the client. Doesn't matter. Okay, who has questions, comments, concerns? Because I'm fine with any hard questions. This is a credible, legitimate strategy. And so any questions are good. Okay, Winston has a good question and it feeds into that. He asked, how do we know that the portfolio's only been sold once? Well, when this is done, so what you're seeing here, Winston, is the 2-page flyer. When we actually sell the debt, it's a full purchase agreement. So there's lots of other pages at the bottom. Same instrument we used when we sold over 3 million to the law firm, right? So this isn't some sort of fool's gold. This is set up correctly. So just like if you were to sell your couch or your lawnmower, there should be a bill of sale that shows ownership is transferred. And so that's what is done in a debt sale. And so it literally documents what's being sold. And so we would no longer be the owner. We couldn't sell it again. It's sold. And same with you. So Winston, if you bought a portfolio, you couldn't, well, you shouldn't go sell that same portfolio to 2 different people because that's fraudulent. It's not 2 portfolios, it's 1 portfolio. Now, could you buy two and sell two? Of course, but it's an asset. Granted, it's an abstract asset, but it's a true asset. It's a receivable. It's a contract. Think about when you bought your last house. There's a good chance when you bought your last house that the original mortgage holder sold that mortgage to a third party. Commonly happens. Well, can they go sell that mortgage to multiple third parties? Of course not, because there's only one mortgage. So there has to be your point's actually very good, Winston. There has to be a paper trail. And so we create the proper paper trail from us as the seller to whomever the buyer is. If you want to be a debt seller and buyer and then resell it, then we'll help you create the same documentation to show that the chain of ownership. So what you're saying is actually a very valid point, but it's done legally and ethically and in writing, of course. Okay, so who else has questions on this? Because if this doesn't pique your interest, either I failed or you're not a good fit for what we're doing, because this is a big deal. This helps clients improve one of their 3 C's immediately and affordably and consistently. It increases not only their balance sheet, but their income statement, because if they're using the accrual method of accounting in QuickBooks or whatever financial software, it shows new sales each month, and they can liquidate it and make a huge profit. Lastly, for you, you can broker these deals and make an easy $5,000 to $10,000 per portfolio. So this may be new information because historically, debt buyers and debt sellers don't deal in small amounts. They like to deal in large amounts. Well, what you and I are doing is breaking it down into small amounts to be able to help these small businesses accomplish their goals. It's a huge deal, huge deal. Denise asked about media. So yes, so let's define media. Media, M-E-D-I-A. So in the debt buying world, media means the underlying contracts. So there are some debt sales that don't, we're not talking about us, we're just talking about in general. In general, there are some debt sales that have media and some that don't. Those that have media are worth more than those that don't. So it's the underlying contract that the client signed. And so you'll see in our agreement, it defines, yes, you can request the media and the process to do it. So we have, well, I guess it's safe to say we have portfolios that have media and portfolios that don't have media. The difference would be, did the client agree to online terms and conditions versus a DocuSign or Adobe? But when you're purchasing the portfolio, that's one of the things that you'll ask, does it have media or not? And typically, if it has media, it usually sells higher because it's even more valuable. And then, of course, you want to make sure that you have rights or access to that media. And of course, that's stated in our agreements. Okay, so who else has questions, comments? This is a really big deal. You know, this is bigger than helping someone improving their personal credit or their business credit. This is the most significant way that we, you and I, as technical advisors, can help people move from being unqualified to qualified by adding collateral. And it's not just collateral. It's not just a black box of vague abstract. It's real receivables that they can liquidate, and it grows every month. I hope you all understand the significance of what we're discussing. Okay, any other questions, comments, concerns? All right, well, we'll see you back tomorrow morning. Thank you for your time. Have a good day. Bye-bye.